Maybe just taking time to either set goals or to, and most importantly, reflect on the goals that you've set in the past. Because so many times in our lives, we want to accomplish things, we write them down, but we hardly ever go back to them to actually sort of check in with ourselves.
Stock.
Yeah, we never take stock of those goals. We never sort of identify how far we're tracking with them. So it's a good thing to say that in the mornings, I'm not saying do this every single morning. I don't do it every single morning, but it's most definitely at least worked into my morning rituals once a week to reflect back on my goals, to say, all right, in this week, what do I want to achieve that will drive me closer towards my New Year's resolution, or that will drive me closer to my goal. Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips, and tricks to help you not only discover, but also reach your ultimate goals. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the Real Life Tips podcast. This is episode number 15 and we're so excited for you to join us back again. I am your host, Mono.
You're joined by Leon. Woo-wee. Can't believe it. Episode 15.
Episode 15, Leon. It's been such a long journey. Well, short journey, but it's really been great for me up until this point. So I'm really stoked that we're still going, that we're still keeping it strong and providing content on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I think we've proven a lot of people wrong, and I think we've proven ourselves wrong as well. I didn't see us maybe going past maybe a month worth of content. Well, actually, I knew we would probably persevere. But yeah, still very proud. Very proud that we've gotten this far. I think for the ones that have listened from episode 1 till now, you are our true listeners out there. I'm pretty sure you guys have noticed an increase in quality and things like that. And we do really make a huge effort every week to try and make it a little bit better than before, because that's pretty much what we're trying to do, is to bring you the best content, something that's relatable, something that you have experienced in your life, and something that we've experienced and did a bit of digging on to bring you some information to give maybe some insight based on those problems. So tonight we're actually going to tackle something that I think probably speaks to most of our crowd, and I'll start it off with a bit of a question towards Manu. Just tell me, are you a morning person?
Absolutely not, Leon. I don't think I've ever been a morning person. It's been an absolute struggle, something that I've been dealing with for quite some time in my life. And I think if I had to date it back to when it first started, it was all the way back when I used to go visit my dad, or when I was a kid, and my dad is absolutely so strict and disciplined that, you would go visit him over a school holiday and all that, and you'd have to get up like really
Was your
early
dad
in the morning.
Military?
Exactly. Well, yeah, he was. Yeah, of course he was. So yeah, something that came from all the way back then that has just absolutely never made sense to me as to why it is that you need to get up early in the morning, get your day started and all that. So I am not a morning person. What about you, Leon?
No. That's all. That's
as simple as that.
That's all I can say. I've never ever been a morning person. I don't remember ever having a good morning, except if it's for, when you remember when you were a kid and your parents planned like a really nice getaway, and that night before you couldn't sleep and you stayed up until like 12. And then that morning at like 4 a.m. they woke you again, and you're so tired, but you actually woke up straight, like immediately, and you were in the car and ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
Those were the only good mornings I can ever remember. Other than that, I've never had a good morning. I wouldn't say I've never had a good morning. I just don't enjoy mornings. I really enjoy my bed and coziness at that time. That said, I'm a bit of a night owl. I mean, I do enjoy going to bed very late. I think we've touched on this in previous episodes. I feel like sleep is a waste of time, but at the very same time, very hypocritical and self-aware that I am hypocritical. I don't enjoy waking up once I go to sleep. I just feel so comfy. What is it for you? What's so terrible about it?
I think it's just that I feel it's sometimes worse than other times, like during winter time, of course, like
Yeah.
it's such a struggle getting out of bed, but not just really getting out of bed, but really just understanding that this is a new day and really just like easing your mind into it and preparing for the day mentally and all those things. And it's such a struggle for me. It's not always just the weather. It's sometimes that you just had a late night the night before and you just can't get into that morning just yet. So it's extremely, extremely difficult for me, Leon. But I think, and that's why we want to address this topic here today, is because we've made progress since we've identified the fact that we are not morning people. And we've discovered since then a few different tricks and reasons as to why it is important to change that methodology or that or thought process behind that whole morning rituals situation. So today is all about morning rituals, understanding the importance of morning rituals and the role that it plays within your life on a daily basis. So I think it's going to be a really, really cool episode.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. Look, I'm really on the side of, the more sleep I can get in the morning, the more I can lay in and just cozy up and cuddle with myself, the better. I mean, if my wife was our guest on this episode, she'll tell you that I'm a really, really bad wakener. Is that a word? Like someone that wakes up?
I don't think it is, but
I don't think it's a word. I've just coined it. Look, I mean, I can trademark the word.
Yeah.
But I hate waking up. I really do. And I'm never, ever in a good mood. I do pretend because there's kids and there's your wife all bubbly and happy. And now you come out like someone's ate your dessert, and I just can't live like that. So, I mean, part of what we've done, and I think me and you, when we met each other, we quickly identified, like, obviously you come to work very early and you can see the one guy, he's immediately going to the kitchen. He just dropped off his bag and he's going to the kitchen. He fetches himself a good coffee, goes outside and just has a bit of a breeze or fresh air, and you speak to each other. You can see this guy's also not a morning person, and we got off real well. And since then we've actually dug into a lot of research upon why it is actually maybe a good idea to try and shift that mental state of not being a morning person. And it really is a choice. I mean, it's okay. I don't think it's a complete voluntary choice. I think it's maybe a little bit involuntary because you do have that subliminal underlying emotion of not wanting to wake up, and that cuddliness and that warmth and all of that. But it is very much a choice. Listen, let me get my ass out of bed, get ready, and do certain things that's going to make this day great. And I must admit, and we're going to talk about this in detail today, when you do get that right, oh my word, the day is different. If you can get it right, if you follow a few morning routines and you can count them off, give yourself a bit of a pat on the back, I promise you, you will have a better day. And geez, I'm still working at this. I will have 5 bad days for one good day, but I promise you that one good day will be making up for the 5 bad days. That's how good it can be. So I think the best place to start is actually, when do you go to bed? Because that affects when you're going to wake up. And if you listen to Tom Bilyeu, for example, he'll say that you shouldn't actually set an alarm to wake up. You should actually go sleep early enough. And after a week or so of training your memory and your brain to go to bed at certain times, fall into REM sleep at certain times, your clock will naturally wake you up at certain times. That's his methodology. I think it's a little bit idealistic. Maybe apologies, Tom Bilyeu, if you're a fan of the show. I doubt it though. But maybe I think it's a little bit harder to follow that kind of strenuous exercise. I think though that he has a point that you need to get your full 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Realistically, I would completely agree that you need to go to bed early enough. They mention about 7 to 9 hours worth of sleep depending on the person. There are extreme cases. I believe I might be one of them where 5 to 7 hours of sleep could be enough to still have cognitive efficiency levels up. But what do you think? What actually works for you, Martin? Because I know we're completely different in this space.
Yeah, I think Tom, you might have a point, most definitely. I think I do understand where he's coming from, because have you ever gone to bed, maybe it was, on a Saturday evening or a Sunday evening, usually Sundays, right? Where you start winding down from the weekend, you've gotten your rest, you've gotten some excitement over the weekend and all that, but you know that the next day you have to get back to the office and you need to start working and all that, right? So you go to bed early enough, and the next morning, sort of, and I've had this personally before, where you wake up just before your alarm actually goes off, and it's such a refreshing feeling. So I do understand.
It does happen.
Yeah. So I understand where he's coming from. I just, absolutely, as you said, it might be a little bit idealistic as to expect that to happen every single day.
I won't try it on a day that you've got a job interview, for example.
Or a very important morning meeting. Yeah, exactly. So
I won't count on it.
No, so I do.
But there is method.
Of course.
There is method.
No, most definitely. I think where I want to start with this before I go into sort of what works for me and all that is addressing the why. Once again, why is it important to focus on morning rituals? Why is it that we brought this topic to you guys here in the audience today? And it's first and foremost the fact that we've discovered that during the pandemic and all that, well, from my point of view, you enter this random stage of not really knowing what exactly is going on in life and all that, and you start feeling really off and all that. And so what I discovered is that by maybe just taking my mornings a little bit more seriously and starting to focus on how I start my day, it really just sets the tone a lot lighter, a lot better for that day going forward. So it's really grabbing the day and taking control of it, and knowing that you're going to come out of that day a lot more successful and accomplish the things that you wanted to accomplish for that day. So morning rituals, to me, I think, Leon, has just always been extremely important, especially during the time that we've just entered into this COVID period and all that, getting your mental space right and really just starting the day off right. So with that being said, I must say that we've just admitted that we're not morning people. It's something that has never come naturally to me. It's something that I've always sort of despised of people when they say, I wake up every morning and I go to gym, or I jog, or I go and cycle 15 or 20 kilometers.
Like that,
yeah. I go and cycle, or I go and jog, or I hit the gym before I come to work. And I'm just like sitting back and I'm thinking, but how? Like, that's great for you. I'm really happy. You make me feel like such a crappy person and such a failure in life as a human being. But you know what? Like, I think I fully understand that now, especially during COVID, because we had certain morning rituals. We never really classified them as morning rituals pre-COVID, and then things like basic stuff like what your usual day, Leon, I think was pretty much you wake up, get your kids ready for school, drive them to school, listen to a podcast or an audio blog, or listen to an audio book, or whatever the case is, head up to work, grab a coffee, and then start your day, right? So maybe have a quick social session with the rest of the guys at the office. And now that was never really classified as a morning ritual, but it was a habit. It was a routine that you had that could sort of get your day, or set the tone of your day as to today's going to be a good day, today's not going to be a good day. If you missed some of those steps, you instantly feel that something's wrong. Someone messed with the formula of today, and you just don't feel in control of that day, right? So post-COVID, fast forward a couple of weeks later, or maybe months later, or a year later, we hit this COVID period, and now we're all working from home. I know that you, Leon, you struggled, you really, really struggled to adapt to this. I remember you still coming to me and saying that, no, I just don't know what this is, but it needs to get over and done with. Like, I'm done with working from home and all that. I want to be back as normal in the office and all that. And it's a big part of that. As much as we didn't have control over it, we had to sort of try and gain control over our own lives and try and set new routines for ourselves, new morning rituals. So I feel that is the most the important point to address before we even get into the rest of it, as to what are good morning rituals, what are bad morning rituals, is really understanding why we're talking about morning rituals today.
Yeah, look, I completely agree. So COVID has actually turned let's call it a routine rather than a ritual. I think there's there's two ways that you can classify this. The one is a strong routine, so that's where everything works like a clock, and everything works in the same way cyclically and predictably every single day, and that's already a very good step in the right direction. Morning routine is a lot more intentional. I think that's where you actually build in some fat, so you make some space in the morning for specific things that's completely and utterly selfish. So you actually, for example, we'll get into all of that later on, but you might, I don't know, listen or write down something, or listen to a bit, or read a newspaper, or do some meditation, do some workout, whatever it is, but it's completely and utterly for you. And we'll explain later in the show of why that is completely and utterly important. But yeah, so it's two different things. And I mean, I had a really good routine. So we would wake up, and unfortunately, because I'm not a morning person and I enjoy my sleep, I enjoy the sleep once I'm in the bed, everything was still very rushed. I mean, we were really out the door in a nick of time, get the kids to the school just before they close the gates, and rush to work. But it was still a really nice routine. I enjoyed it. It felt like there was a bit of intentionality around my day. There was a bit of predictability. I felt in control, and all of those things are positive. However, yeah, you're completely right. When COVID came, I think none of us knew the height and the breadth of how bad and how disruptive it would be. So I kind of went with the flow, and within a month or two, I fell into such a bad groove of bad morning habits. I mean, and there was an actual morning where I think I attended the entire day of work from home in my boxer shorts. I mean, I didn't even go and brush my teeth, get in a shower, nothing. I just literally woke up so late. The house is empty. My wife and everyone's already gone. And I'm the only bloke in the room, in the house. And I'm like, I'm like 10 minutes late for my first Teams meeting.
I think
and I just rushed up. Exactly. I mean, luckily it wasn't a video conference. I mean, we all fluke those as well. You mean, you just wear a really nice shirt and you've got boxes at the bottom. But anyways, so that's the point when I realized, listen, this is not working, because now I feel completely and utterly out of control. My whole day feels like it's turned on its head. Everything feels rushed. I'm completely disoriented, and I'm not like that. I'm usually quite a well put together type of person. And it just went so badly against my grain. And I think that's actually the day that I phoned you and I said, listen, what kind of tips are there? And you actually mentioned something, and I think that was something that helped me even until today. And I still follow this even on the tough days. And it's something that you kind of have to do, because it's going to have an imprint on your entire day. And the only time you have to reset this is during sleep for the next day. Then you can have a rerun. You can't retry your mornings. You have to retry them the next day. So you told me, listen, do the things you used to do. Still get up, get in a shower, shave, get some nice clothes on. Be intentional about attending work and still having that discipline, the same disciplines around work. And that really did turn the boat around for me, even though it was just so easy to stay late in bed and just walk up the stairs and get into the office and start working. I still felt that the payoff for being more intentional, spending that bit of time in the morning on myself and being proud of attending work and still being in a proud kind of outfit while sitting here and performing work, that's kind of what tipped the scales for me into feeling a little bit more in control again. So again, I actually thank you for that, because I think I would have been in a madhouse by now, because I don't like disruptive things and I love predictability. I don't like change. We've mentioned this before in previous episodes, or in a previous episode. What did you actually do? How did you get to kind of curb this problem? Because I think everyone had this initial problem of you don't know the breadth and the width and the depth of this issue and when it will end. So you can't like put a pin on it and say that day I'll start performing well and I'll start doing my own things again and I'll start doing things the right way again. you kind of just took day by day. It just felt like a blur, like a bit of a dream. What was your approach? Why were you so quick to identify the issue and the rut that we were all getting ourselves into?
Well, I think it was a couple of things, to be honest with you. Number one, I'm a creature of habit. So I'm very predictable. It's something that you've always pointed out to me, is that I'm extremely predictable. It's something that I pride myself in, but sometimes, I feel that it might be one of my biggest weaknesses. But nonetheless, so I'm a creature of habit, and I came into certain habits when I was at the office, when I was going into the office every day pre-COVID. And to be honest with you, Leon, as disciplined as I am, I must admit that the first 2 days or 3 days of COVID was exactly the same, or of lockdown was exactly the same thing for me as it was for you as well. So I didn't just wake up and I didn't just get dressed for work and all that in the first couple of days. So I absolutely, yes, I tried the whole thing of waking up late, 2 minutes prior to clocking in for work, or logging in and getting stuff done and all of that. Still in your PJs. And then you sort of like tell yourself this white little lie of like, you know what, it's fine. You've got the whole day. Like, you'll eventually start.
It's still novel as well.
Yeah, exactly. You'll eventually get to the point where you can go brush your teeth quickly and then come back, do a meeting, and then quickly go brush your hair or put on a shirt or something like that. And that went on for 2 or 3 days. And I just couldn't do it anymore. It just felt so strange to me. So to answer your question as to how I flipped it around is because, number one, I tried out the alternative of like taking it easy and all that stuff. But number two, I really realized that we don't know how long this is going to carry on for. Okay, this could carry on for, there were rumors back then that this is going to carry on for a year, for 2 years. You get comfortable with working from home. This is the new normal.
Right.
And all that. They were all right, of course. But we didn't know that. I didn't know that for sure. So I sort of treated it as like, what if I had to get into this new habit, basically break down all my old habits, because we've spoken about this before. It takes a couple of days or a couple of consecutive days of performing an action before you start growing a habit around it. And I didn't want to lose the habits that I had before and then get into new bad habits, so-called bad habits, of being at home, not really waking up late, not really getting dressed until midday or something like that. Having to discard all of those habits then going forward again, if we were to say, we all have to go back to the office next week or the week after. So that sort of was my motivation behind getting up every morning, getting dressed. That was one of them. The other one was I was never sure if, because in the whole COVID situation, in some of the meetings, people would turn on their cameras and they would expect you to turn on your camera as well. And it's sort of awkward, if someone else's camera is on and yours isn't and all that. So I wanted to just be prepared for if anybody wants to switch on their cameras, I would at least look presentable and not have to tell them, hey, give me 5 minutes. Let me just quickly go put on a shirt and pants or something like that, right? So it's a combination of things, but really what it came down to is the mental state behind it, because I felt that as soon as I stuck to the routine, something that feels familiar to me, that it would carry me through this whole pandemic and working from home stuff and all that. So I hope that makes sense, but that's sort of my thought process that went behind it as well.
It completely does. I mean, I think as the midsection for the show, we can talk a little bit about the benefits, right? Before we get to the how. And things that we've tried and stuff that I've tried. I've been very experimental. I've been open to experimenting with different morning routines, and I promise you, it's just delightful. It's the only way I can explain it. If you start a morning the right way, if you can get out of bed, that's the only problem. It's just to get out of bed. If you can do that early and you feel fresh, so you didn't go to bed late like I usually do. You went to bed at a good time and you wake up and you're fresh, but you're nice and early, and there's a lot of space between you and having to do stuff. It's a delightful time of the day. You can do whatever you want, and we'll get into some of those examples later. But some of the benefits that I've reaped out of this, and this is quite obvious stuff, guys. I mean, we're not going to really turn a blank page and teach you anything new, but some of the stuff that I realize is that it completely has an impact on productivity. So if you actually wake up late and you're in a rush and everything starts with that rushed intent in your mind, and you start actually trying to catch up to the day, your productivity just goes for a ball of flaming poo.
Oh yeah, most
All right,
definitely.
for lack of a better explanation. This invokes stress. And again, we've got way more than enough of that in our lives at the moment. So everything that you can do to actually prevent stress or to try and circumvent stress is going to be good for you. Stress is actually a killer. It's proven. So the more stress you have, the earlier you'll die. And that's as real as we can get on this show. It's a fact, and it's been proven. So stress actually has an impact on that. I think for me, the biggest thing is starting the day on the right foot and having control.
Yeah.
I hate starting late, then being rushed, and then again, like I said, trying to catch up to the day, and then you miss stuff or you forget stuff, or you get to work but you forgot your laptop on the desk,
Yeah.
or just losing control of the day because you didn't have that slight extra bit of time to be in control of the day rather than the day controlling you. Those are a lot of the benefits that I see from just planning your morning routines a little bit better. But apart from just the regular morning routines of waking up at a reasonable time and having enough space between you and having to do stuff, what are good morning rituals? So I'm not talking about routine. I'm not talking about waking up, giving yourself 15 minutes in a nice hot shower, then spending 10 minutes to get dressed, 10 minutes to get the kids fed, 5 hours to get them in the car. Not that. I'm talking about rituals. Let's start getting into how can we even boost the morning efficacy so that it's not just of getting up early and having a morning routine that's going to benefit on the basic levels of having a good day, but that's going to be so beneficial that you actually want to enjoy good mornings and good morning rituals and having a reason and an intention to wake up early in the mornings. So we're actually going from routines into rituals. What are some of the things that you've tried that's worked? Let's go through that maybe. Let's talk about what have you tried, what's worked, what kind of impact does it have. There's a lot of things that I've tried as well. Maybe let's start and elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 100% I had to sort of get myself into a lot of morning rituals to benefit my day, benefit my daily contribution towards a lot of my goals, but also to really start off my day on the right foot. So just to give you an example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of the morning rituals that I actually did. I'm not saying everybody needs to do this, but just to sort of set a baseline of understanding as to what has worked for me and what has and why it is that I actually took that upon myself and put that into my morning rituals. Is number one, exercise, right? So I just admitted that I'm not a morning person. I've never ever seen myself as someone that would wake up. I mean, we just laughed about people that wake up early, that go for jogs and cycle for 18 miles or whatever before they go to work and all of those things, right? So I'm not a person that likes to exercise in the morning. Yeah, but if we're talking about working from home and the freedom that it brings to that morning and that extra hour or 2 hours that it gives you to a day in the morning before you even get started with the work and the stress and the hustle and all of those type of things, right? Exercise absolutely is something that I discovered is something that I could work into my morning rituals as opposed to doing it in the evening as I used to do pre-pandemic, if you want to put it like that, right? And there's a couple of benefits that exercise actually brings to you, and we've spoken about this previously in some of our episodes, is just the science behind and all of the research behind it that just has proven that exercise not only boosts your mental state, your mental well-being, your overall positivity over that day, but also it boosts a lot of your energy levels and stuff for you to better be able to deal with stress, better be able to handle a lot of stressful situations as well. But for me, the main benefit to that is saying that let me get my exercise out of the way as quick and as early as possible because I've got the time. And when I say early, I don't mean 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or even 5 o'clock for that matter. I mean that I can wake up at a sort of realistic time or a convenient time for yourself, and not really saying that I'm gonna set my alarm for 5 a.m. and try and push through and power through because I want to adopt this new habit of mine of exercising in the morning, right? It's saying that now that we're working from home, we've got a little bit more time because we don't have to get stuck in traffic, we don't have to travel anywhere and all that. We've got our computers set up at home, we can actually work from home, so it gives you a little bit of freedom in that regard as well. So I work in a little bit of personal growth time. It could be just a half an hour of reading, a half an hour of just listening to a podcast, or an hour of listening to a podcast, taking some notes and really just reflecting on that as well. I think that really just helps you to say that even if you go into this day and it's absolutely so stressful, the timelines are so strict and you can't get through all of your work, that you can reflect back onto that day and say, you know what, everything else failed, but at least that 2 hours in the morning that I spent on my morning rituals was a success. I managed to get some personal growth time in. I managed to learn something new and to sort of drive myself towards that goals. And that's pretty much the last part that I want to touch on in terms of some of the rituals that have worked for me, is also setting apart maybe, the last 5 to 10 minutes of that morning ritual and saying that, what are my goals that I've set in the past? Maybe if you don't have any goals set up for that quarter or for that year that you want to accomplish, maybe you haven't gotten around to doing your New Year's resolutions, maybe just taking time to either set goals or to, and most importantly, reflect on the goals that you've set in the past. Because so many times in our lives, we want to accomplish things, we write them down, but we hardly ever go back to them to actually sort of check in with ourselves.
Stock.
Yeah, we never take stock of those goals. We never sort of identify how far we're tracking with them. So it's a good thing to say that in the mornings, I'm not saying do this every single morning. I don't do it every single morning, but it's most definitely at least worked into my morning rituals once a week to reflect back on my goals, to say, all right, in this week, what do I want to achieve that will drive me closer towards my New Year's resolution, or that will drive me closer to my goal? And that really just sets a positive note on that day and all that. I don't know, Leon. So those are some of the examples of the morning rituals that I've sort of adopted within the COVID period and working from home. And I don't know how sustainable some of them will be going out of or coming out of the pandemic going forward, once we've all received these great vaccines and everything works, and we can go back to a semi-normal life as we knew it back before the pandemic. But from your point of view, I'm really interested in understanding or hearing from you, what sort of morning rituals did you adopt, and which of those have actually worked for you?
So I think from my side, I think what I did is I started with a book. I actually read the book from Robin Sharma, The 5 a.m. Club. And I started noticing, there's a bit of a trend amongst people that are able to take control of the morning versus people that aren't. And it has a huge impact. It's almost like compound interest. It's got a huge impact over time upon a lot of things, your destiny, your future, your ability to complete goals, etc. I mean, you just mentioned the value of being able to reflect upon goals in the morning. Even if you just spend 2 minutes reflecting on your goals that you set, and taking stock and figuring out how far you are towards those goals, or maybe do you need to course correct, do you need to break it up into smaller bits and pieces so that you can make it more achievable, etc. There's just so much good that comes out of a well-controlled morning, and a morning where you are in control. If you think about it, you can actually break it into the 4 pillars. I believe the psyche people and so on, they refer to it as mind, heart, body, and spirit. For me, it's it's basically mental health, emotional health, and physical health. Now, if you, for example, like Manny mentioned, if you can include some sort of physical exercise in your morning, and I'm the last person to preach about physical exercise, but if you if you tuned in on our some of our previous episodes, you'll know that I've actually embarked on this journey. Finally, at the ripe age of 35, I've decided to do something about that. But that's actually given me a lot of fulfillment in the mental, emotional, and physical health aspects and pillars. And it's strange because I don't think I've ever had such a fulfilling part in my day as doing exercise. I now completely get it from the people that do have the ability to, form that into their day or fold it into their time. It just makes you mentally strong. It takes away a lot of emotion, bad, and adds a lot of good emotion. You always feel good afterwards. And again, obviously, it's going to increase your physical health. That's quite obvious. That's the reward, is that it will increase your physical health. One of the other things that's very important to mention is spiritual health. Everyone's got some sort of spiritual, let's call it for the lack of a better word, a spiritual need. They need some sort of connection with something spiritual. And I'm the last person to try. I thought I would never ever try meditation. I remember the first time I saw people meditating on some sort of YouTube video or whatever. I thought it was madness and it looked like so strange. And I didn't get it. It just looked bizarre. And I actually tried it. I downloaded a few of the popular apps on my phone and I did what they call guided meditation, where they actually tell you what to do. And it was actually very, very good. I can't believe how they are able to look. It doesn't work the first week. You get distracted and thoughts pop up in your head and you just can't zero in on that moment of nothingness. But you do get a hang of it. You do really get control over those thought patterns and taking control of your mind and things like that. And that in and of itself is extremely powerful. Being able to control your mind and take control of your emotions and being so situationally, emotionally, and spiritually aware of everything that's going through your body. And I mean, the way that they make you kind of zero in on all of those aspects so acutely, you come out of that almost like you were born. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just really, really incredible what you feel like afterwards. So just to come to the question that you asked, as far as morning rituals are concerned, I sound idealistic. I promise you I'm not. So everything that I mentioned now, those are all good ideas, and I would urge everyone to go and explore all of them and kind of see what works for you. Another thing that worked for me is including reading in my morning. Again, I don't find time to read enough anymore.
Yeah.
And just to set aside half an hour of reading for the day, that is really nice. It's just, you feel like you did it, and you learned something. And that's impactful in itself. The exercising. Now, the nice thing about exercising is you're there on the treadmill or on the machines or whatever for an hour. Take that time, spend it wisely. I see so many guys just bob and weaving around on stupid music. Look, I mean, I might sound like I'm talking down to them now. I do get it. It gives you like energy and whatever. But maybe take that time and get Audible or get some way of, I don't know, ingesting information or listening to podcasts or listening to good YouTube channels or something like that, to actually take the time and have dual purpose. You're fulfilling yourself physically while doing some spiritual and mental exercising as well at the very same time. So I've actually, the balance that works for me, and maybe this will work for you, and this is just because of my routine. So how my routine works right now is we wake up in the mornings, we get everyone ready, the kids, everything in good time, and we try not to get that too rushed. Again, we do get it wrong, I think 50% of the time. So 1 out of 2 days could be a bit rushed. The other half is decent and the way that we wanted it and planned it. Then I would drop off the kids on the way back, do some exercising, come back to the office, to my home office, do some reading, and then get into work. And just having that routine combined with some rituals just puts me in a very, very strong position mentally for the day, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. You feel good because you just did some exercise. So those are some of the things that I've included. And again, I'm doubling up on some of those. Like while I'm driving, I might actually listen to a podcast. While I'm at the gym, I might actually listen to a book on Audible or Blinkist, depending on whether I want to get through it quick or long. But yeah, so I do double down on some of them where and if I can, but you don't need to be that aggressive. You can start simply by waking up 10 minutes early and then writing down a gratuity list. So a lot of people believe that there's a lot of strength in writing a list of gratuity. So what are the things that you're grateful for, and write them down every day. And that kind of puts your mind and your spiritual mind into a point of being super happy about just being alive and having what you've got. And you become very acutely aware of the people around you that are less fortunate, which puts you in so much more humility. You're so much more aware of, wow, I'm really, really lucky to have what I have. I'm lucky to have my health, my kids. Everything is fine. There's so many people, especially during these times, that are going through such terrible or difficult circumstance. So a gratuity list is also a very good way, small exercise, extra
Absolutely.
10 minutes in the day that makes you feel great about just being aware that, listen, I might think that things are bad, but wow, there are people that's got it so much worse.
Yeah.
So those are a few of the things. I mean, I do, like I said, those are like 3 or 4 things that I try and get done every single day.
Yeah.
And the key, and I believe you will agree with me here, man, is the key is to do them with enough time. I'm not saying way more than enough time, but don't rush through it. That just completely detracts from the experience. You have to do it with just the right amount of time, and that takes about a week or 2 to figure out.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, most definitely. And I think we have to address the obvious point here, is that because a lot of us are actually working from home still, it's very simple for us to look at this and say, yeah, sure, we can actually go ahead and start implementing this in our lives as we are living right now. We're working from home, we've got some extra time in the mornings and all of that stuff. So it might be quite realistic for us to look back and say, sure, now might be a very good time for us to start implementing some morning rituals in our lives. But I really want to understand, Leon, is a lot of these things are quite idealistic in the scenario and the situation that we're living in right now. But what do we do going forward? What if we come out of this pandemic and we don't have the time to do this in the mornings? Because now what we're talking about is building brand new habits, and that's sustainable during this sort of work from home experience. But going forward, if we were to say, we all have to return back to the office tomorrow or next month, is that not going to throw us off a little bit? And isn't it going to be difficult for us to sort of carry over our new habits or newfound excitement over life and your morning rituals that we've implemented or worked so hard to implement over the last couple of months, or going forward from this podcast? For those of you that don't have any rituals currently implemented, working hard on that and coming out of the pandemic and saying, how am I going to keep this and make it sustainable going forward?
Look, that's a very good point. I think at some stage we are all going to go back to some sort of normality. I think we all appreciate that that will be different from what it was like in 2019. However, you need to just adapt. So right now, yes, you've got the luxury of coming back home, and maybe your commute during the morning time is less than it would have been if you had to drive into work. For example, where we live, a commute to work is about an hour out of your day, an hour back at night. So you're looking at 2 hours. So if you just take it into hours wasted in behind a steering wheel, that's perhaps a time that you can then rework into time that you would have used in the morning. So it's all about time management and finding where you can fit and squeeze those rituals back in. For physical exercise, I mean, that's something that if you enjoy it and you get into it, you'll find time. So whether that means you have to now wake up even earlier, or whether it means you need to do it sometime during the late afternoon or evening as you come back from work, I can't really give you the correct recipe there. All I know is that if you do enjoy it and you find it fulfilling, you'll naturally find a way to fit it into your lifestyle. Because again, it does become a lifestyle. If it's work, it's never going to be sustainable. If you find it and you're lucky enough to make it part of your lifestyle, it will be sustainable and you'll make the plan to make it happen. We used to, when we actually went back and forth into work every single day, I think they call it, rolling university, whatever. That's when you're behind the steering wheel and you've got your smartphone with you. Use it. So either sit there and start thinking about your gratuity list. If you're a spiritual person, use that time to communicate with your maker. If you listen to podcasts, you can do it then. If you listen to books, you can do it then. Yes, it's double action. You have to kind of multitask and you have to pay attention to the road whilst listening to the words, but it's still better than just sitting there and listening to mindless pop music or whatever you're listening to on a radio station. So I do believe previous life versus now, yes, I think it's better now. You do find more time to be physically alone and sit and be intentional. And in the old ways, given the amount of time that we spend on the roads and having to spend 8 to 9 hours at work, it's harder to implement these things. But still, I think what should happen then is, if you think about the amount of sleep you need at night, if you need, what was the right amount? I think 7 to 9 hours, something like that. If you need to do that, just shift that like 1 hour earlier that you go to bed at night, and then you've got that hour back in the morning. So just adapt that. Why do we put our kids to bed at 8? It's obviously because that's the ideal. That's what the doctors tell us to put. That's the best time to go to bed, because that means you can actually wake up at 3, 4 in the morning and be fresh. It sounds like terrible now if you think about it. I mean, I'll die if I have to wake up at 3 or 4. But you've actually had ideal sleep if you spend from 8 till, let's call it 4 in the morning. You've got 8 hours of sleep. If I'm not mistaken on my math there. But that means if you wake up at 4, I don't think there's any job, I'm not talking about the late night workers and so on. But I don't think there's any job that's going to need you at 4. So you can actually still then just move that schedule earlier in the morning. And I promise you, I spoke to you before this episode about this. A week ago, I had to actually wake up extremely early to go and meet actually someone very early at my daughter's school. And it was the first time, I believe, I can't even think how long, probably 2 to 3 years, because it felt like I was on a different planet. But I actually left home at like 5-ish in the morning, and it just was such a surreal, such an incredible time of the day. And that's why Robin Sharma wrote the book, The 5 a.m. Club. It's that weird time of day where there's almost nothing going on. It's just beautiful outside. It's extremely fresh and like ice cold, but fresh and not a bad cold. And there's hardly anyone on the road. Everything feels clean, and there's just like this birth. It feels like a new day got birth or was given birth to. And those times of the morning, I think, is something that if you can take harness off that time, and the energy that just purely comes out of that time where your kids are still in bed, your wife might still be asleep, everyone's still down and out, and you are doing something intentional to make the rest of your day wonderful, it will pay off so greatly that you naturally want to do it. It doesn't. It shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be a job or work to do that. It needs to be so rewarding that you naturally fall into a groove and a habit of changing it into something that you regularly do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if getting up early has a lot of benefits to it, but it's making sure that you find a good balance. It's not you're cutting out hours of your traditional sleep patterns that you've now become accustomed to and all that. But it's really saying, how can you, it's time management. It's exactly what you said. It's looking at how you manage your time in the mornings to better spend them on positivity and really taking time for yourself out of your busy schedule to focus on your mental well-being before going into that day specifically. So I think one of the tips that I would want to give is, and this is something that I came across a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, I read it somewhere. It's plan your day before someone else plans it for you. And it's so true. When you think about that, right, if you don't take time in the morning to sit down and to actually plan your day and to set the tone for your day, someone else is going to do that for you. You're going to receive a call, or you're going to receive an email, or you're going to sit in a meeting, someone's going to tell you something, and that's going to set the tone for the rest of the day. You're going to feel upset, you're going to feel stressed out. And if you don't take time in the morning to sit down and say, you know what, today is going to be a good day. I'm grateful for everything that I have. I'm grateful for the health that I have. I'm grateful for the money that I receive on a monthly basis from my day job, or on a weekly basis if you get paid weekly. I'm grateful for every single thing that I have in my life, and this should be a good day. I'm grateful for the sun that's out. It sounds really silly, but for me, that's something that's really close to me, is that I'm really grateful if the sun is out, if it's not a rainy or a miserable day, because instantly my mood just lightens up. I'm not a guy that could survive in a place like the UK or something where it appears that it's always just overcast and rainy, right? So for me, it's really important being grateful and planning your day accordingly, and not just mentally, but actually in terms of tasks that you want to achieve for that day as well. So I read somewhere that they said that in the morning, one really good morning ritual, that it's actually something that I still need to go and try out myself. But I can absolutely understand the point of it. Maybe I do it to some extent, but I just don't do it the right way. Is write down 3 things and only keep it to 3 things that you want to accomplish that day. Whether it is in your work tasks or personal tasks and all that. 3 things that would make you call that day a success at the end of the day, looking back. So even if you don't achieve all of the things on your whole checklist of items that I do usually, I go and I write down a whole list of things that would mean, this was a successful day. In some days I actually do accomplish it. Most days I don't, and I have to carry a lot of those checklist items over to the next day, and it absolutely just burdens you getting into bed that night and looking back and saying that I didn't check every single thing off of my list. So maybe writing down 3 things that would make that day a successful day, and then you're taking the time and planning your day. That's my real life tip, Leon. I don't know, any real life tips that you want to wrap it up with, or maybe summarizing, pinpointing some of the important ones that you've mentioned already.
Yeah, I've got 2. I actually forgot about one that I'm going to steal from Tom Bilyeu, and then I've got another one. So the first one from myself is that we need to learn not to be too hard on ourselves. These habits, they have to be habits because they're not easy. If they were just instinct, we would have done them already. So set yourself reasonable goals and start small and work your way up into something that's comfortable, and start with something that you actually enjoy in the morning. So don't start with 100 push-ups when you can only do 10. Or like me, don't start with 10 if you can only do 1. Start small, make it realistic, and then don't be hard on yourself if you miss out the first week on 2 days and stuff like that. You're a human. You're gonna get there. That's the first thing. Secondly, Tom's got this thing where he says get up in 10 minutes or less.
Oh, yes.
That really does work for me, because I'm a snoozer. And I think we've just hit a bell there on a lot of people. I think, look, I can snooze the day away, I think.
Me too.
I don't even know on my phone.
I still do that to this day.
I know,
so
and it doesn't, it seems as if the snoozes aren't the same length anymore. Like they used to be just 10 minutes. Now I think they start on 7 and they end on 12. Or, I don't know what happens, but I just lose and eventually I'm late. And then again, the rush happens and everything just falls apart after that. So Tom actually says, get up in 10 minutes or less. So that means 1 snooze. Keep it to 1 snooze. Wake up on your first alarm. While he says he doesn't use an alarm, I don't want you to go that far. Set up your wake up alarm, do 1 snooze, get your ass out of bed. If you can do that, the rest will just follow, because if you do that early enough and you went early to bed, obviously you'll get up quite fresh. Get yourself a nice coffee, go sit somewhere quiet and start with your morning rituals. That's just how it works. And that is what's made it exciting for me, is because you always come out of that morning ritual feeling so empowered and accomplished and proud of yourself that it becomes something that you want to do. Once it's something that you want to do, you'll naturally just do it. That's the tip for me, is just get out of bed. Don't sit there and lie. That's my biggest problem. If I could just get over that, and that's why the 10 minutes or less thing worked for me. If I don't snooze, I can get up early. Yeah. But then again, you have to also go to bed earlier. But anyways, those are the tips from my side. I think that will get you far down.
Yeah, that's actually so powerful, Leon, because it reminds me of something else that I actually want to add on top of that, is just do it, right? So it takes some time actually building these habits and all of those things, right? And in the beginning, it's extremely difficult. I remember when I had to get into the whole routine of, first and foremost, not being a morning person, having to get into this routine of exercising every single morning. Just do it. Wake up and tell yourself, don't even give yourself time to think about, am I going to skip gym this morning, or am I just going to, rather just read a book or something like that. Don't think. Write down what your morning rituals will be. All right. Decide on what you want to accomplish for that day. And then it's going to be trial and error, right? So some of them will work out some days, some other days they won't really make a difference and all those things. So it's really going to take some time for you to find your mix of what is your perfect morning ritual that really works, that really hypes you up for that day, that really puts a positive spin in the morning, and that puts a positive note on that entire day. But the point is, write them down and then commit to them. Wake up in the morning, as Leon said, if you're going to try this out, wake up within 10 minutes and then instantly put on your gym clothes. Don't even think about it. Just do it. Just go into it. If the first thing you want to do is not exercise, if the first thing you want to do is to pick up a book or listen to a podcast, make it as simple and as easy as possible for you to actually get into that, to, without thinking, start actioning that specific morning ritual, right? So create a shortcut to your podcast app to instantly wake up and start playing the podcast. Maybe hook it up to your speaker or to your wireless speaker the night before, or something like that would just make it a lot easier. If you want to exercise, put your gym clothes out. Trust me, a simple task like that, putting your gym clothes out so that you don't have to open up your cupboard or closet and then try and figure out what you're going to wear to gym. It really, really helps.
Do what I do. Just go sleep in your gym clothes.
Exactly. That can work as well. So yeah, absolutely, Leon. I think it's been such a great episode tonight, focusing on the importance of morning rituals, why it's important to actually start adopting them, but also why it has worked for a number of other people out there and how it's worked for us, and the reasoning behind that being the most important as well. Some really cool tips that you've shared with us that you've read in the 5 a.m. Club. I'm really, really amped on trying some of them out. The whole morning clock without setting an alarm thing won't work for me. I don't know. Maybe it's something that I can try and get myself into, but I'm going to oversleep and I will miss some of my meetings. So some of them I'll most definitely give it a shot. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much once again for joining us all the way through to the 15th episode. And I really hope that this has been informative. I really hope that this has been inspirational or motivational. And I really hope to see you guys again in the next episode. That is it from myself, Mono.
You were joined by Leon. Thank you very much. We really appreciated you listening all the way until the end here. We're going to be back next week with some more information and more real life tips. Thank you very much. Stay well, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining this episode. We really hope that it inspires and motivates you. By the way, we're giving away a free 5-step personal budget template that will help you take control of your financial goals. So just head over to rltstudios.com, sign up for our newsletter, and we will get that right over to you. So head over to rltstudios.com and we will see you in the next episode. Until then, cheers.